In 2016, I voted to leave the EU. By the time we left the EU, I personally regretted my decision, but accepted responsibility for it. Recently, Ursula von der Leyen suggested that the EU would be willing to accept the UK back, in fact, would welcome them back. And a YouGov poll this morning showed that over two-thirds of Britons, when asked, would accept a return to the single market, even if that meant free movement. So my question is, when can we expect our politicians to reflect the public mood?
Guto Harri, you were a prominent Remainer, I seem to remember.
Yeah, I thought it was a very bad idea at the time, an act of self-harm, and my view has not changed. In fact, I don't feel smug at all, because I feel a bit sort of depressed about the whole thing, but I don't think it's worked out. I don't even know anymore in what way it's meant to make sense. Even Nigel Farage doesn't seem to think that it makes sense, nor Jacob Rees-Mogg. They all say that we haven't got the right sort of Brexit. But on the going back, I think going back, you should imagine if you'd actually left the marital home. I don't know if you're married or not, but if you've left the marital home to move in with a young lover, and then you decide that wasn't really such a good idea, I'd like to come home now and get back into the bedroom and hang out with the kids and you. That's how easy it'll be to get back into the European Union in any situation that isn't sort of more grueling and painful than being outside. So much as it pains me to say this, I have no anticipation of us being back in the European Union for the rest of my days. Hopefully my kids will live to see that happy day, but not while I'm on this planet.
Stella Creasy.
I was just checking whether we were pre or post watershed with the analogies that Guto's like. I sit here, I'm the chair of the Labour Movement for Europe, right? I'm with you on the I'd never inhaled on Brexit, but I'm also with you that
I got very high.
You got very high. Yeah. I can imagine. And I'm really, really nervous about already the damage that Brexit has done and the damage that is going to be done. Next year, the government is intending to bring in a charge of £43 for every single consignment that comes into the country. They've admitted themselves that it is an inflationary measure. And when I say consignment, that literally means if you have a truck that has apples and oranges in, you've got the charge for both the apples and the oranges. It's going to be a nightmare for small businesses, let alone all the jobs we've already lost, all the trade that's down, the idea that somehow you can fight geography in terms of your ability to keep a business going. You'd imagine, therefore, that I'm going to say, yeah, Robbie, the quicker we can get back in, the better. But the reality is of any process of renegotiating, I'm probably not going to with you on the analogy about lovers and bedrooms, but it is a long process. And actually my concern is we don't have that time, because all the damage that Brexit has done, if we are going to do anything to save the British jobs, save the British businesses that are going to go bust because of this pressure, we've got to do things that we can do quickly. So the question for me is, what are those things? So, for example, something that might keep you awake at night if you're thinking about moving back in with your wife, the Pan-European Mediterranean Convention. If you're
just to be clear, he's still with her.
I'm still with her.
I didn't want to make any presumptions. Didn't want to make any presumptions.
But the analogy would be, how do you handle the kids when you're divorced? Because that's the territory we're in now. We need to be civilised. We need to get on as well as we can with the European Union. We need to make it work as well as possible for the next generation. But unfortunately, I think the idea of going back in is fantasy.
But we also need to do things that don't make it any worse. So, for example, some of the decisions about the electric car industry, the Pan-European Mediterranean Convention could really help with that. So we could rejoin something like that. Erasmus. I don't understand why we didn't keep Erasmus open for our young people. And yes, we've got to look at access to the single market. The question for me is how quickly we can do things to repair the damage. I'm more hopeful than you, Guto, that we can actually repair that damage, but more resolute that given how destructive Brexit has been, the priority is what do you do in that small window we've got before literally anything you do will make no difference at all, because the jobs are gone, the industry's gone, and all the opportunities have gone.
I'm really interested to hear what Jim thinks about this, because, given that he represents a seat in Northern Ireland, you've got quite a big dog in this race.
Well, I'm not quite sure if we're a big dog or not, but Maybe I haven't got sharp enough teeth. No, the fact of the matter is I'm a Brexiteer through and through, supported 100%. Unfortunately, the Brexit that we were promised wasn't the Brexit that we got. We've ended up in a halfway house. People say it's the best of both worlds. No, it's not. It's the worst of both worlds, because we're stuck in between the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, where we wish to be part of and to be. I think it was Margaret Thatcher had said that Northern Ireland is as British as Finchley. Well, no, we're not anymore. So whenever why was Brexit important to me? It was important to my constituents. The majority of people in Strangford voted for Brexit. I have a big fishing village, Portavogie, probably one of the biggest ones, and second biggest one in Northern Ireland, after Kilkeel and just above Ardglass. But for me, fishing was critical, because we've been strangled and choked by bureaucracy and red tape from Brussels over the years. We weren't able to catch this fish, we couldn't catch that fish, we couldn't catch enough of them, they were on quotas. All these things conspired. In Portavogie, in my constituency, 99.9% of the people who could vote, and that doesn't count unborn children, by the way, they voted to leave the EU and support of Brexit.
But in Northern Ireland in general, Northern Ireland voted to remain.
Oh, well, I mean, yes, the majority of people in Northern Ireland, but my constituency, 52% of them who I knew they would were in favour. I mean, you could say this, take the same argument, by the way, and take a constituency in England or Scotland, or they voted to remain. Does that mean that they actually stay and the other part doesn't? I think what we've got to remember, with respect, if you don't mind me saying so, it's the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. No, that means the decision's taken by everybody, and whatever the joint majority decision is, that's the one that matters. But the Conservative Party, forgive me, have screwed us. That's a fact. And they've let us down over and over and over. Boris Johnson sat at our party conference. I must say, he didn't sway me, but maybe I'm a canny Ulster man, and a smile and a hand on the shoulder doesn't win me over, you know.
Well, that's to ask what does.
Well, honesty wins me, Stella, every time. They were not honest with us, and that's the worrying thing about it. So Boris Johnson promised us a Brexit the same as the rest of the United Kingdom. It didn't arrive, and we become less British in Northern Ireland whenever I love my Britishness, and the people that I represent love it as well. So disappointingly, we got a Brexit we didn't want, not the Brexit we were promised, and unfortunately we're in this halfway house now where the bureaucracy that we hoped would disappear has actually got worse. Businesses in my constituency now tell me that the red tape and Stella mentioned about a charge coming. Yeah. With my constituents who want to bring postage or letters from across the water, there's a charge in that there because it's coming over. Seeds, plants and seeds. If
I send something with Every or Hermes or whatever they're called now to Northern Ireland, I'm now paying £2 more than I'm paying to send it anywhere else in the United Kingdom, which I think is an outrage.
It's absolutely scandalous, and that's one of the. It's not just as because dishonesty, and we ended up not getting what we were promised, but it's now become financially inhibiting in relation to the cost that everyone has to pay. I know people who ordered seeds from companies, that's for the garden, obviously, across the water, and they suddenly found that there was a charge of £5, not £2, £5. People who used to order across the water online. For instance, these are examples. A horse's rug, which was for their horse. I have a lot of people in my constituency who are into horses in big ways, and one of those was it was £35 to buy online before Brexit and before we got the deal we didn't want, and it's now £55 to £65. So these charges have all been levered upon those people, us who want to be Brexiteers. And all Martha. Yes, excuse me. Yeah.
I just really want to go back to Guto's analogy of the marriage.
See what you started.
Yeah. Like any divorce, lawyers make a killing, by the way, and that's been the story of Brexit. It's been a massive distraction, cost a fortune, but sorry, Martha.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
Well, the thing is, basically, I don't think rejoining would actually be that much of a problem when it comes to the EU. I mean, you need a number of things to rejoin from scratch. You basically need to show that you've got the same values, and you show you're stable democracy. You need the green light from the European Commission, which it sounds like we've got. And then there's talks. But as a recent member, I think we're kind of skip over that.
Would we not have
quickly.
to join the euro? Isn't that a condition of membership now?
I don't think. I think there are lots of exceptions, and I think that I think that it would be easier than we. I think the main barrier would be, in terms of British politics, in terms of like the impossibility of saying that you're going to rejoin as a politician. Do you know what? I think it's softening on the European side, and I think it wouldn't be so hard to rejoin.
But you see, speaking as somebody who, like Jim, voted for Brexit, to my mind, if we went back into the EU, if you're going to do that, well, you go back in lock, stock and barrel. Part of the problem that we had as members of the EU is that we were never fully in. We were also
we had a really good deal.
Half-out status.
We had a really good deal, and it's not impossible to imagine that we might have that again. Like other countries do have kind of opt-outs from all the conditions that everyone has to abide by.
I think we have to be honest. Jim chose to leave his wife. He's now not that keen on the mistress.
We're married 36 years, by the way, so...
but you've got to make a choice, haven't you? You've got to make... Because now you know what Brexit has to deliver. I'm less confident because I think it is quite a lot for us. We took up a huge amount of airtime in Europe. And, there are other things happening. There's a war on our border. There's a big issue in terms of migration. The cost of living crisis is not hit. Obviously, actually, we've been hit harder because of Brexit, but those are issues that our colleagues in Europe are dealing with as well. Any form of renegotiation. I mean, Ukraine is on a fast-track process for negotiation, and that's still talking about 7 years or so. So I as somebody who, Guto, did not want to leave, but recognises that we have, I think we have to live in that. Like, Jim, you and I have to make a call because we can't keep talking about a kind of fantasy other bus that we could have got onto Brexit. This is Brexit. The question is, what do you do about the damage? You're right about the fishermen. The fishermen and women have been sold down the river by Brexit. They need an answer, not somebody saying, I didn't mean that. So we've got to make a call. Are you going to go back to your wife or not?
Well, I've stayed with her 36 years. So still haven't.
The political reality is, though, that the leader of the Labour Party... So whoever it is within the next 10 years, the leader of the Conservative Party, whoever it is within the next 10 years, they're never going to suggest it.
No. Well, the other challenge, of course, is if you're Europe and we're asking them to expend capital on a relationship, they've got to be confident that we're going to be stable about it. So I think there is a question about what's stable in the UK. What I think Robbie is pointing at is that the public are not daft. They can see that Brexit is causing problems, and people trying to say all these problems are due to with the pandemic, it doesn't wash with them anymore. My concern is that Brexit is going to keep giving more problems. So A, we've got to be honest about that, and B, we've got to come up with solutions. And that's why, for me, as chair of the Labour Movement for Europe, I'm really focused on what can we actually achieve within the next 18 months that might save jobs, save businesses, and might at least limit some of the damage that people in Strangford or people in Walthamstow or even people in West Ham are dealing with right now because of Brexit. I know, but I know you're a fan.
I am. I don't think it's actually affected my football club particularly. In fact, we won a European competition, so it's been a great thing for us.